So I guess starting with the introductions, I'll be the moderator for the trolley problem. And so set the scene. We're going to be seeing the argument between the stout utilitarian, the advocate for the innocent bystander, and the two non-utilitarians, where the topic for this debate is on the railroad tracks connecting from North Carolina in the city of Durham, going to the city of Raleigh. We have come across a moral dilemma where we have two options to go with. There are 5 people on the track, and the trolley is moving in a direction to where it will kill those 5 people. And so we have a few options to go with. Option A is just send the trolley on through, killing those 5 people. Option 2 is we have a person to the side where they have access to change the tracks that the trolley's on, and through changing those tracks, the trolley will be going through hitting one person on the track on the opposite track instead of the 5, saving those 5 people, but killing the one worker on the opposite track. And then option 3, pushing an innocent bystander onto the track, saving the 5 people and the one worker on the other track. And so we're going to be hearing the perspectives from the stout utilitarian that will be arguing for the side of saving those 5 people and killing the one worker on the other side. And we'll be hearing the perspective from the advocate for the innocent bystander that will be arguing for the belief that it is incorrect to use that bystander to save 6 people. And then we'll also hear from the perspectives of the two non-utilitarians that will go in either direction. That will side with either the stout utilitarian, the innocent bystander, or be in their own side entirely. And so the roles being played out will be the stout utilitarian is played by Dennis. The advocate for the innocent bystander would be played by Rachel. And then the two non-utilitarians would be played by Alex and Chantel. So let's start off with the stout utilitarian. Dennis, with your introduction.
Yes, sir. So I'm the staunch utilitarian. As you already introduced me, I'm I'm heavily focused on consequences. So I let myself guide throughout the day by consequences, and whatever is right or wrong for me in the moral context is solely decided by the consequences. So if there is a good consequence, then morally, from a moral perspective, this action was good for me. It's moral acceptable. Whenever there's a bad consequence, morally, this action was a bad, because since there is a bad outcome of my action. And yeah, so I'm always focused on maximizing the happiness for the entire group. It's also a little rational and quantitative motivated because whatever maximizes the good for the greatest amount of people is the right thing to do, in my opinion. So regarding the trolley problem, I would totally go ahead, as you already said, Ian, pull the lever, redirect the trolley, sacrifice the one to save the 5 people.
All right. And then let's move on to the introduction by the advocate for the innocent bystander, Rachel.
I would advocate for the innocent bystander as they have they are not in harm's way in the first place, as they are not the one on the track. And in sacrificing them, um, they didn't have no place in the problem in the first place, and it's not fair for them to be put in harm's way. Taking a more non-utilitarian approach, as it would end up hitting the five people. However, it is not fair to the innocent bystander to be put into this problem, and be sacrificed for five lives that were put in harm's way in the first place.
All right. And then moving on to the introductions by the two non-utilitarians. Let's start with Chantel and then move on over to Alex.
Yes, I'm a non-utilitarian and I support the Kantian approach because I think that it's morally wrong to either pull the switch to kill one person and save five people, or also to push the man off the bridge. So I think both of this is wrong because from a Kantian perspective, no one should be sacrificed for the sake of others. So like Rachel said, this man didn't choose to be in this situation, so you cannot sacrifice him regardless of the consequences. So for me, morality is not about the outcomes, it's more about the intentions behind our actions. And yeah, in both of these scenarios, you would use them as a tool to achieve a greater good, which I think is morally wrong.
All right, move on over to you, Alex, for your introduction.
Yes, I'm also utilitarian, but I'm also a believer in virtue ethics. To me, being a virtuous person is the best thing you can do. I believe an action is only right if it's an action that a virtuous person would carry out. A person who acts virtuously is someone that possesses and lives the virtues. And virtue means essentially just behavior showing high moral standards. So for me, in this case, I believe that pulling the lever would be the best thing to do, sacrificing the one person and not the person that is up on the bridge, because I believe it's just not virtuous to push somebody into a situation that they weren't in the first place, as opposed to hoping that by pulling the lever, that person can get out of the way and we won't have to sacrifice anybody, but at a minimum, we won't be sacrificing somebody that was not involved in the first place.
All right. And so, based off these introductions, it seems that we have a bunch of conflicting opinions about what we should do morally in this scenario. So let's start off with Rachel. Why do you believe the bystanders should be left alone compared to Dennis's opinion to where we should use that bystander?
I think the bystander should be left alone, as I said before, they weren't put in harm's way in the first place, and they didn't put themselves in that situation. So it's not fair to push them and save other people when they weren't supposed to be involved. I also think that in pushing the bystander, you morally would be guilty, and take like that you would have the fault of pushing this man and have a guilty conscience because of it. Um, and so in pushing him, unlike flipping the lever, you're physically pushing the man off the bridge and stopping the trolley, which I think is just morally wrong and would cause a guilty conscience and would not be okay. I think that it's different from Dennis and Chantel and Alex, yes, but I think that the five people that are already in harm's way would it would be morally right for them to be killed by this accident instead of someone that is innocently standing above.
See, I disagree with your opinion, Rachel, because I think morality in this matter is not related to the identity of the individuals. I think you should see it from a purely rational perspective, as if you should, well, generally, you should treat every individual the same, right? So you should treat the bystander the same as you would treat the 5 people laying on the train tracks. And if you follow this approach, you will get more or less to the approach of balancing the net suffering and the net happiness. So if you're treating everyone equal, you would get to the solution to pull the lever to kill one person, minimize the suffering, and save the 5 persons, right?
So I disagree with Dennis because I don't think that just those good consequences. So you said that the net outcome is better and that's what matters, but I just think that that just good consequences can't just justify wrong actions, because I focus on the intention behind any action, and the intention to sacrifice one person to save 5 is just morally wrong, because then you make a deliberate decision to harm this one innocent person. And as Rachel said, this person didn't choose to be in this in this situation. And I don't think that our impulse to minimize death is right, because our actions should be guided by like our moral duty and not our emotions. And we have the duty not to take an innocent life, so not to kill someone, regardless of that maybe appeal to save those other people. And also,
Well,
yeah.
let me add something. Isn't everyone in this scenario innocent? How do you determine who is innocent and who is not?
Yeah, but we have what I'm saying, that we have the moral duty to not kill someone, because there is the formula of universal law. I maybe want to mention that, because this formula says that you should only act according to rules that you want to become universal rules or laws. And this means that everybody has to follow these rules. And if you now say you justify killing that one person to save 5, you make this a new rule, and then you say it's like acceptable to sacrifice those lives for maybe a better outcome. But I don't think this can't be acceptable, because then we also like harm the principle that all lives are equal or have equal value. Like what you really make like lives like quantitative. So you say, yeah, 5 lives are worth more than 1 life, and I just don't think so. Because then we would, as a society, I think we would just lose respect for individuals, right? If we say, yeah, it's okay to kill one and save life. So I don't think we can make this a rule.
But if
with
5 lives are not worth more than 1 life, how can you say that this 1 life is worth more than the 5 lives? Or how do you determine which life is worth more than the other one?
with what you were saying about innocence, Dennis, I think that the innocent bystander, as in its name, is innocent as they are not one of the people on the track. So if you were to debate innocence, I don't think the people on the track, no matter if it's the 5 people or the 1 person, are completely innocent. However, the bystander shouldn't be pushed, as they are innocent. They are not in the way of harm. They're not on the tracks, so they shouldn't be hit in the first place. And pushing them off is completely your fault, instead of if it was the 1 person, if you flip the lever and the other person's on the other track, they're still not completely innocent because they are standing in harm's way.
Yeah, and you would be guilty because you kill that person. And I think
Okay, but it's interesting to speak, like to use the word guilt, because I mean, Chantal, your approach would be, what would your approach be? Not doing anything, right?
yeah, I wouldn't do anything because I just let it happen. Like, I mean, I think it's better to not pull the a lever, and maybe allow this harm to occur, and that those people kill. But then you are also not directly responsible for causing it, I think. And I think we have to just that duty not to kill, and then you are not responsible, what I'm saying. And I think cannot be any exceptions that you like then sacrifice this one guy on the bridge.
All right.
Let me add this one point, please.
Yeah.
I see where you're coming from, but don't you think that if you're standing next to the train tracks and you have the ability to act and you do not act, don't you think you're running into another moral problem of having the opportunity to help, but
But you
not
don't
doing
know,
so?
I mean, at the beginning, you don't know what will happen. I mean, you are in that situation, and
Oh, of
maybe
course I know.
you might
It's gonna run over the 5 people.
yeah, but you cannot be sure about it. It will happen, but you are not. I mean, maybe they will be. These people like will leave, or something other will happen. So maybe you make it even worse, and you don't know.
If I can, real quick, as a virtuous person, I think, you know, again, it's all about behavior, showing high moral standards, and to show high moral standards means doing the right thing for yourself and the highest number of people. So in this case, for me personally, it's easy for me to take the side of the one life over the 5 because I strongly believe that the greatest number of people being saved in this case is the optimal choice. Although no choice really is optimal in this case, but to me, the greatest number of people should always come first.
Adding on to what Chantel was saying, along with what I'm saying about the innocent bystander, I think in her case, if you were to flip the lever, that's on you. Like it's your decision. It's on you for killing this one person. With the innocent bystander, you're the one pushing them. You're the one putting them to their death. So in her case, if you flip the lever, you're putting this one person to their death. Meanwhile, those other 5 people, they were the ones that chose to stand there in harm's way. And they were the ones that were going to get hit by fate, by the means of the world, that they were the ones that were going to get hit. So when you flip it or when you push that person, you're physically doing something to put someone else to their death, which I think is that's what causes the guilty conscience on the person doing it.
Well, I would ask you this. I mean, if it's 5 children versus one, let's just say old man, you know, the children, yes, are on the track in harm's way, but you could chalk it up to them being children and not knowing better. And being that this case doesn't specifically specify age or sex, et cetera, you know, you'd have to take into account again, just simply breaking it down to the number of people. So if you could save 5 children, or let's say one man that, is in a senior state, I think that choice becomes pretty clear of choosing the 5 children over, the one man. If you want to look at it like that, I think that, strengthens my point of, choosing the 5 over the one. But
So you had brought up an interesting point right there of taking into the factors of age. So does age really matter that much when it comes to choosing 5 people? One, or like in the example you just gave for an innocent bystander, maybe the innocent bystander was an old guy or a 5-year-old kid. Does age play a part in any of this or change any point of views?
If I may speak to that, I also support Alex's opinion because I think if you start to differentiate between age, you also have to start to differentiate between, I don't know, education, social status, whatever. You can't just blame it on age. So you have to take way more factors into account. And I think if you're trying to value a life over another person's life, we are running into an entirely different moral issue. That's that's exactly the reason why I would just keep it as pragmatic, as simple as we can, but just focusing on the lives. So every life is equally worth. And in order to produce the greatest happiness, we would have to sacrifice one to save 5.
I agree with what you're saying on ignoring all factors within a person and just looking at lives in general, because you could claim then that the innocent bystander on the bridge was this Nobel Peace winning guy, even if he is old. Like it could be a very important person, um, depending on who the other people are on the tracks. I think it really depends on just like lives in general. And if you were to push this one person, yes, it's one life compared to five, but it's also somebody that's innocently standing up there, and they could matter just as much as the other people standing on the tracks.
Yeah, for me, I think it comes down to less of like who might matter more, especially in a split second decision like that. You don't really have the time to break down that stuff like age and, maybe achievements that might be admirable, et cetera, et cetera. So for me, it really just draws back to, again, looking at it from a virtuous standpoint, and in that having the high moral standards. It just comes down to that number of people. So even if it's five of the exact same, or sorry, six in this case, of the exact same person, with five on one side and one of the clones on the other side, you'd still, especially in that case, even choose the five clones over that one that's just happening to be in the wrong place, wrong time. Sounds like the situation is the same for these five people. And although I believe in the scenario they were working on the tracks or something along those lines, I don't think that adds. I don't think the situation behind why they're there should add or subtract value to their lives.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would also say, yeah, like as you said, like I wouldn't take age into this because, as I've said, for me, all lives are equal, and we have just this duty not to kill. And I cannot differentiate between those people. If these are kids or old people, they are just equally, they have the same worth. And yeah, I have a question. Like, do you think that one side of this issue is better than the other? Like, either pulling the switch or pulling the man? Like, because I think, I mean, I disagree with both cases, but I just think that it's even worse to pull the man, because then you really actively kill him. And when you only push the switch, I think you are more indirectly involved in this harm. But yeah, for me, like in my opinion, both are wrong. But
I mean, it's the same situation as if you're killing the cow with your own hands, or if you're just buying the meat in the store, right? So someone else kills the cow. It's in the end, it's the same action, right? If you're pushing the man off the bridge, you're killing him. If you're flipping the switch, you're killing the innocent guy or girl laying on the train tracks. So you're killing one person either way, just in a different manner.
I agree with Chantel on that though, because as the advocate for the innocent bystander, when you're physically pushing them, I feel like that puts a lot of guilt on your conscience because you are physically pushing the person. And I think that matters a lot more than flipping a switch. Just morally, like how humans think, I feel like when you flip a switch, it doesn't feel as real as if you're physically pushing this person to their death.
All right. And from everything that we've heard, it seems like there's a lot of viewpoints to be looked at here, where we looked at several things like taking into different factors like age, social status, and even the whole premise behind this trolley problem is it morally correct to kill 5 people, or to change the tracks and kill one person, or kill one person that had nothing to do with the whole thing? And so to conclude this mock debate, we'll hear the outgoing statements from each person, starting with Dennis, moving to Rachel, then Chantel, and then finishing off with Alex.
Thank you, Ian. So I have to say, you guys partially convinced me to see this from a different perspective. But at the end of the day, I'm still an advocate for my theory of sacrificing the one to save 5 lives. just because it's the overall greatest benefit for everyone. Because you should treat everyone equally. Also, I wanted to mention that what are we trying to do in science? We're like trying to simplify complex things into rational models, right? So we do that in math, we do that in economics, we do that in biology. We are always trying to simplify things and processes. So I would also say we're trying to simplify this whole situation as much as we can. Look at it from a pragmatic point of view and just see 5 lives and 1 life and decide whatever is going to be the best decision, save the 5 lives.
All right,
Thank you,
move on
Chris.
to Rachel.
I do think I was very interested in every side. How seeing the different views of flipping the switch was very interesting to me. However, in advocating for the innocent bystander, I feel that it is morally wrong in order to push him, as it's physically guilty on your conscience, and also he was not involved in the issue in the first place. He did not put himself in harm's way, whether being on the track with 5 people or the track with 1 person. He was just going about his day doing something completely different than what they were doing. So I don't think it's fair morally for him to be put into this issue and put into the track to be sacrificed for the other lives.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was very interesting to hear all the different opinions, but I still believe that with the Kantian ethics, you have the most consistent idea that all people, like all individuals, have the same worth and they should never be treated as a tool or as a means to an end. And I think that this approach really ensures that we never forget the value of each person and also the moral duties we owe to each other. So it's really consistent and there are no exceptions. And I also don't think that we can just simplify things like that. So I don't think that lives are quantifiable. And yeah, for me, this Kantian approach really helps to focus on what matters, like respecting the rights and autonomy of each person. And like Rachel said, that this bystander didn't choose to be in this situation. So if he wants to sacrifice himself, he should decide, and we cannot decide for him. Yeah.
Yeah, so for me, I think where I'm still at is just breaking it down to the number of people. And so, in either case, when it comes to pushing the man over or pulling the switch, we do lose 1 person. And for me, that's the best outcome. And between those 2 outcomes, I think pulling the switch in this case would be the more virtuous thing to do. Because I think if you put your average person in that situation, that's probably what they would do, because it would involve nobody being forced to their death per se. And again, it will save the greatest number of people, which in my eyes is the best thing we can do in this case. So I think I'm still stuck there. And again, if it comes down to choosing between pushing someone or pulling a switch, I think I'd have to go with pulling a switch to still save those 5 people.
All right, and that concludes tonight's debate on the trolley on whether you should kill 5 people, kill 1 person by switching the tracks and saving those 5, or saving all the people on the tracks by killing an innocent bystander.